as somebody who has had and recovered from eating disorders, I sometimes get messages from people I know who are worried about somebody that they care about, worried that they are struggling with an eating disorder and not knowing how to deal with it. So what I thought I'd do to mark Eating Disorders Awareness Week is to make a little video where I just read a little bit from a letter that I wrote to one lady whose daughter was struggling. As a bit of background, I suffered with anorexia and bulimia when I was a teenager, and so that's where my experience is rooted. There are lots of other types of eating disorder, so I can only speak for these two. But if you know someone who's struggling, then hopefully this will help. So I've got this letter behind me, so I'm just going to be looking up at it. But so the things that I wanted to tell this woman about how she might deal with her daughter's eating disorder. So my tips. One was, don't force the issue. So I wrote, when I was ill, family members sometimes expressed their feelings about my illness through anger and frustration, which is understandable. People want to shake you and say, why won't you eat something? Even though they know it's not as simple as that. There are a couple of occasions also where they not forced me, but really tried to pressure me to eat, put me under a lot of pressure to do so, and this isn't really very helpful. So I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to try and do that. Yeah, please don't. So as well as don't force the issue, I also wrote, but don't feel like you have to hide your sadness. So I've written, the moments that were most effective at getting through to me were when my dad, and indeed my mum and brother, were just sad. It's painful seeing a family member feeling helpless like that. When you're anorexic and trying to find a reason to fight that voice in your head telling you that you're not thin enough yet, it is the people who love you who will give you that reason. So initially, we won't really want to get better for ourselves. So we don't think we're ill enough or thin enough. But seeing the emotions of the people who care about us provide a bit of that fight that we need to keep us going. My mum, for example, would write notes to me throughout my recovery. They were honest. She didn't hold back from saying how sad she was at seeing what this illness was doing to me. With people you care about, it can be quite jarring to see the personality change that can happen. It's a horrible surprise to both parties. But they also expressed pride in my efforts to get better and acknowledged that sometimes, they might get angry or frustrated, but that it's only because they loved me and wanted my happiness, health and well-being. So keep the channels of communication open. You can be honest about how you feel. The third thing I wrote was to separate the person from the illness. So So one thing I will say is sometimes anorexics lie, okay? It's, of course they do, of course we do. It's a hallmark of the illness. We don't do it to hurt you, we do it because if we don't respond to the obsessive need to get thinner and avoid food, the guilt and the panic just becomes too much. So if the person that you care about has lied to you, they are not deceitful, their illness is. So if anyone ever tells the person you care about that they're selfish, attention-seeking or a burden, make sure you take them to one side and set them straight. Anorexics in particular are trying to disappear, not become the centre of attention. So make sure that you don't call somebody a word like deceitful or lying or anything like that, because it is an illness. That's why a lot of people who suffer from anorexia will refer to their illness as Anna, and again with bulimia, Mia, because it does feel like another thing. It feels like you're a host to the illness. So it can help to sort of imagine the illness as another person. So yeah, so try and keep that separate. Oh, and as a side note, I've written, it's okay to want to call the person that you love selfish. Anorexics live in their own head, constantly thinking about what they're consuming and the struggle they're facing. So they may act in ways that shock you sometimes, and you don't need to feel guilty if you resent that behaviour or you feel angry about it. That is normal. But remember that open, honest and calm communication is best. If there are arguments or spats, so what my mum used to do she'd come and say, look, come and sit on the sofa, we both have a hot drink and talk honestly about what had just happened, what we were feeling. And ultimately these conversations reminded us both that A, she was really worried about me and she loved me, and B, I was trying to get better, but it's a matter of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So I recommend those kind of discussions. Another thing that I've said in this letter is don't get weird around food. So one thing I remember about my brother's reaction to my illness is that he would eat normally around me. So it seems like an odd thing to remember, but it definitely made me feel better and stronger when I was trying to increase my calorie intake during recovery. So yeah, make food positive, don't get weird around it, and please don't cut back your food intake. If you're going to be on a diet around somebody who is recovering, you need to, when you're eating around them, please don't pick at a salad. It's that's going to turn into a competition in your loved one's mind, and it's not one they're going to lose. So it's going to drive them further into their behaviour. And you really can't be restricting your own food intake while telling that person that they need to increase theirs. It's just not going to work. So eating healthily and normally is a really important thing for family members of recovering anorexics to do. We'll be watching you like a hawk around meal times, and if you pick at your food, like I said before, there's no chance we'll be eating ours. So yeah, my brother's enjoyment of food definitely helped me when I was recovering. I felt like he was my ally, and he was always super impressed when I made a breakthrough. So the first pizza I ate after years of it being a bad food is a memory that will stay with me, because he was very chuffed and I remember him being very proud. Another thing I've written is find a counsellor. It might help if the person you care about gets a psychologist or counsellor, and don't feel defeated if the first one that you find isn't right for her, you, them. If after a couple of meetings it's not working, try someone else. So my first psychologist that I had made me feel worse. My second one made me feel hopeful and helped me out of one of the most difficult situations of my life. She gave me a meal plan and some coping strategies, which are both very helpful. And the meal plan kind of reminds you what normal eating is, which you have to relearn when you're getting better. Another thing, writing diaries. Okay, so this was something I did during my recovery. Loads of the bloody things lying around. Buy that person a nice journal and some pens, or go together and do it together, and encourage them to write their feelings down. And finally, a support network. So I would suggest this might be a couple of friends or family members, or it might be a website. I used a website called Pale Reflections, which is a US-based eating disorder support group. There's better ones in the UK, and you can go to like Beat, for example, which has got some good forums and some great blog posts and articles. So sometimes you need a little bit of reassurance and to know you're not on your own, and there are other people all over the world fighting this, and they know what you feel and what you're going through. And this is a note finally from me to anybody who is watching this who is suffering with an eating disorder right now. I know this hurts, but when you come out the other side, and I believe you will beat this, you will be a completely different person. You will be more resilient, more insightful, and more aware of yourself and your ability to do the seemingly impossible. You will enjoy food again. You will enjoy socialising again. And believe it or not, you will be able to stand in front of a mirror and feel happy, not just at how you look, but at who you are. Since I recovered, I've had some incredible experiences and enjoyed them fully. You can do that too once you're stronger and better. You've got this. I know you do. Just don't give up. Don't stop fighting. When you win, it will feel amazing. I promise.